Hi witchlings, welcome back to my channel. It is me, your local chaotic witch aunt. And today we are going through 3 banishing spells for every witch. Similar to the spells that I did in the protection video, I am taking these spells kind of from my own spell book, or in some cases, my book, and I am modifying them so they have more accessible or less ingredients. All of these spells have the capability of being modified or changed for your own practice. For example, I use a lot of agrimony in my banishings. Same with Angelica. If there's another herb that you're like, oh, I love this for banishing, you can substitute it, no problem. What is a banishing spell? A banishing spell is a spell for when you really want someone to fuck off. I'm kidding. But that is kind of the concept. It's when someone, a spirit, an entity, a person is really encroaching on your energy in your space. Maybe you picked up a little bit of negative energy during your shift at work. Maybe you feel like someone has sent something gross your way. Maybe you are just feeling like the people around you aren't it. But you can banish them. I personally like to use banishing spells for a couple things. I like to banish spirits if they break the rules of my house, which I haven't had to do in a while. I like to banish like things. So I will banish being broke. I will banish a particular energy. I will banish a particular type of person. I very rarely do banishments targeted at specific people. I prefer to do my banishments towards certain things. So maybe I'm banishing a hex that someone sent to me, or I'm doing a reversal of it, or I'm breaking it up and just getting it out of my space. Perhaps I'm, banishing people who take advantage of me. Perhaps I'm banishing people who project onto me. Banishing spells are very lucrative, and I think that's why so many people do them. I typically do banishing as the first step when someone is pissing me off, and then I will move forward depending on how the banishing goes. And what I mean by that is, let's say someone is gossiping, talking shit, they're doing or they're just in my space, in my group, and I really don't like them, and I've tried everything mundane and they will not leave me alone. I will banish them. And then from that banishing, I will see how it goes. Will they leave me alone? Will they get out of my space? If they don't do either of those things, I may put them in the freezer. I may send a little something their way. Banishing is like the first step into banishing is the first step for me before I start going like return to sender, which I did include a return to sender in here, but like more intense reversals, more intense spells to get you to go away. That kind of stuff. Banishing is step 1 for me. But the banishing spells that I've included in this video have to do with more kind of 3 different methods to kind of banish negativity, remove harm someone sent you and return it back to them, or just banishing bad vibes. I did choose 3 different methods. That way all manner of witches can come in and kind of be like, I don't like doing this method of spell work, so I'm going to do this method of spell work. So they're kind of 3 methods, 3 kind of spells that I have that I love to use for banishing that can be modified for every witch, or you can just use my recipe, that's fine. So the first is a banishing bath. I love baths. I recognize that not everyone has a bathtub, or if you're like me, you have a bathtub, but the faucet doesn't run like scalding hot water, it runs lukewarm water. So anyways, I'm still pissed about it. So this is a banishing bath. It was featured in Spells for Change. The herbs in here are like the herbs that I really like to use. I probably am going to modify this on the go for more kind of herbs that I like. But the original banishing bath that you can find in Spells for Change includes black tea, bay leaves, garlic, lemon, just like a little wedge, not a whole lemon. If you really want to use a whole lemon, I'm not going to stop you, but like 1 lemon, basil, and sea salt. So I would recommend this if you're like me and have a highly volatile Coochie. It sounds like it's gonna come out and like kill someone. No, it just is really picky and anything gives me an issue. So if you're like me and you don't want to bathe like in this, you can put these in a fabric bag and like wash yourself with it, or better, you can turn this into a simmer pot, let the simmer pot cool and dump it over your head. Full ritual bath. And kind of the best way to do this is a banishing bath is, let's say I would use the bath if I feel like I've been around a lot of negative energy that's stuck on me. If I would like to do this in advance to kind of repel some energy. I'm not sure how I feel about basil in this. I'm assuming I did that because basil is a good protector, at least in my tradition. It also brings in money. The black tea, super good with banishing. Bay leaves, very purifying. Garlic, extra protective. Lemon is also a really protective tool that you can use. Sea salt, the great purifier. If you want, you can substitute basil for chamomile, just because that may be a little bit easier on like scent wise. Or chamomile is known for dispelling negative forces and negative energy. When I talk about banishing, I typically mix, my banishing spells are created with half protection herbs, half kind of reversal or dispelling herbs. I think ritual baths are an incredibly underutilized form of magic, especially when you can kind of create it in a simmer pot, or sometimes I just use my electric kettle, I pour hot water over it, and then I dump it on my head. If you don't want to use a lemon or garlic, I also understand. Lemon and garlic are both tools that I use pretty frequently. Black tea, any black tea will do. I am an Earl Grey bitch, but if you want to use some English breakfast, go for it. I think I did give pretty good instructions and spells for change. I gave all the, I love when I do this, all the reasons for each one. Black tea, intent to protect and banish negativity. Bay leaves with intent to protect and manifest the spell. 3 cloves of garlic to ward off evil and negativity. 1 slice of lemon to give those who attempt to place negativity on you a sour taste in their mouths. Kind of love that. Basil, intent to protect you from harm, and sea salt, intent to cleanse and purify and remove any negativity that has been placed on you. Sit in the bath, imagine the water soaking up all the negativity that has been placed on you. Make sure the water touches every part of your body, including your head, and rinse yourself off after you drain the bath. The only thing I would change now in my practice is I wouldn't rinse myself off. If I'm doing a ritual bath or I let myself air dry. I want all that good shit on me, you know? But I understand that that's not practical for everyone. Not everyone has time to air dry. What you can also do is you can put this into like a separate type of spell, like a charm bag, and carry it with you. There are lots of different ways to do this. I just prefer the bath method. A simmer pot works as well. The next banishing spell that I included is a return to sender. This one's a little bit more spicy. It's gonna take all that harm off you, all that negative energy, and just send it back to whoever sent it. I am using the return to sender from my book, and the only reason I'm doing that is because the return to sender that I use, I keep secret. I don't want people knowing my return to sender spell or my reversal spells on the internet, all right? Because then they can undo them. That's just me being superstitious. That's not necessarily everyone's belief. So this one I also like because it has less ingredients. It's not super hard to do. It includes an envelope, some salt, black pepper or chili pepper, I like both, a piece of paper, and thread. And what you're going to do is you take the piece of paper, you write on it the following petition or sigil. Anyone who directs ill will or negative energy toward me has a return on them tenfold. You would take that and you would create a sigil out of it, or just use that piece of paper for the intent. You place the piece of paper with your petition on it in the envelope, along with the salt, chili peppers or black pepper, and hydrangea. Hydrangea is a really good reverser and a really good curse breaker. I really like using hydrangea. I grew up with hydrangeas around my house. There's also folklore that if you plant them in the front of your house, you get protection. You can use hydrangea if you want. I always have a little hydrangea root around, but if you don't have access to it, that's also okay. Take your thread and wrap it around the envelope 3 times, reciting the following as you do. Aw, I love this one. I am rubber, you are glue, your damage bounces from me back to you. You sent me your hate, prepare to suffer 10 times that fate. My soul is clean, yours is on fire, you fucked with a witch. Now may the consequences be dire. Shout out to my friend Pixie for creating that. I know someone on TikTok once was like mocking the I am rubber, you are glue thing, but I do like this one because it adds to it. It's not just I am rubber, you are glue. It's also, prepare to suffer, you fucked with a witch. May the consequences be dire. So I love that little added, like, it's not just bouncing, it's bouncing, but like 10 times faster, like a fucking hammer. After wrapping the envelope, burn in a fire-safe area and dispose of the ashes away from your property. You do not have to burn it. You can just dispose of it in a fire-safe area. If you're really petty, you can actually send it to them in the mail. I'm just like, there's nothing in here that is going to harm them. What I would add to this spell, because this was published in 2021, 2022, we are in 2023 now, I would write, if you know the name of the person, write the name of the person on the front of the letter. So it actually kind of, if you could put a stamp on it. Actually, stamps are expensive, don't do that. Found out after moving out how expensive stamps are, and they are so expensive. So don't waste a stamp on this, but like you can write the name of the person and their birthday on it and then dispose of it off the property, but really just kind of like taking the idea of returning something to sender with the envelope and making it into sympathetic magic. I think Matt, my co-host Matt, also helped me with this, the like genuine, like take that return to sender literally. I love this spell. Of course, if you prefer something like a 7-day candle, you prefer something a little bit more candle-y, also fine. Most of my reversals are candles at this point. I love me a 7-day candle. However, this is the one that I have, and I consider a return to sender a form of a banishing, just because it is kind of removing that energy from your life. It is removing it and just kind of sending it back in a reversal. I will do another video as well that goes more in depth with reversal spells and what exactly that entails. Banishing is what I do when someone is really bothering me. When someone's really bothering me, or like they're in my life, they're causing negative energy, and I just want them to go away, or I just want their energy to go away, I will banish a bitch. Banishing is also done for like spirits, like trickster spirits. In Roman animism, they're called lamares, I think. No, I think they're called something different. I'm still learning, okay? But this is, you know, banishing is when like you just need someone to get out. I'm gonna give the last one, which is a Banishing Incense. This is my own blend, -1 ingredient, because I never give my full recipes online. You're gonna do equal parts agrimony, chamomile, rue, and myrrh. This can be burnt on a little charcoal tile, or it can be turned into a powder, added to candle spells, or you can turn it into like a water with grain alcohol or an oil. Those are the 3 banishing spells that I could think of off the top of my head. I will say I am not as intense in banishing as I am in protection, and that's just me. I don't find myself having to banish a lot of people frequently, and that's okay. You may find more people that you need to banish, and that's okay too. So is there a particular banishing spell that you really love doing that I didn't include? Let me know down in the comments. I also want to hear what your ideas for substitutions are. If you would substitute a particular herb or a particular method in my version of the spell that would work better for you, and why. But overall, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. If you want, you can like, subscribe, and turn the bell on, but absolutely no pressure. Remember to drink water. Siate benedetti.